Welcome to episode 406 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon, and we got a very informative episode for you. This week, we're talking about the increased interest in developing a clearer path for consumers from food to fork, mainly in northern Oklahoma, with Brady Sidwell of Sidwell Strategies. Just a reminder, you will be able to find all of the information we talked about on this episode and previous episodes on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
You mean something heavier than a Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Bud Light, or Michelob Ultra now.
Dr. Brian Arnell. And next to him is Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
Slow moving has never been a Sidwell thing, so I don't think you could do that physically.
Dr. Josh Lofton. And across from him is a postdoctorate in the Plant and Soil Sciences Department.
It's more management, more money, all these things.
Dr. Radon Cherry. Now let's kick off our conversation with Brady Sidwell that we recorded on January 11th, 2025, while we were set up at the Oklahoma Wheat Commission's booth at the KNID AgriFest. Just a heads up, you will hear reference to those world-famous Wheat Commission cinnamon rolls. We sure appreciate the Oklahoma Wheat Commission's support of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast and all that they do for wheat growers across our great state. So, without further ado, on to the episode. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. We have Brady Sidwell with us here, and Brian, go ahead and do the introduction there.
Well, it's hard to know where to start with Brady.
Right.
What are we talking about today? But Brady Sidwell, he's got his fingers in a lot of different pies, but a lot of it could be, the integration of farm to fork. If we've talked everything about from the distribution center, I guess the co-op type of center, through the feed, through the restaurant and event room, and then through the distribution to get food around everywhere. And so, Brady, happy to have you on today. Just kind of talk about stuff going on. And, of course, Josh and I have utilized, Josh more so, has utilized you quite a bit coming into classrooms and talking about, just talk about everything in our cropping systems class where we're trying to introduce the kids to basically agriculture.
Yeah. Once you get the seed out of the field, what do you actually do with that stuff?
That's right. Yeah. And by the way, in those classes, I was surprised how over half of them are from outside of Oklahoma. So we're getting global quick. So.
We are. Well, I had some questions. I was out of state last week, and I had a lot of questions from like Purdue folks that were there and others like, what is our student ratio? Are we really high in-state? And I said, not anymore. Our in-state's probably below half.
Yeah.
Wow.
As far as a lot of California, a lot of Kansas and Texas and Midwest is coming through. So, Brady, I did a really poor job of introducing you. So
I was wondering what you were going to say, because I couldn't have done it any better, I think.
So maybe give us a little bit about your background and what you're up to nowadays.
Well, I'm talking about those cinnamon rolls, and I just had one, and I plan to do that more. I don't know if they cut you off at some point, but
not yet
for the free passing. But our flour is in the cinnamon rolls and some of the bread they're going to make this afternoon, and. So, I guess my kind of story in short order is grew up, traditional wheat and cattle farm in northwest Oklahoma. Went to OSU, followed in my dad's footsteps in plant and soil science. He was an agronomist with Oklahoma State for actually, 34 years.
Yep.
The research station at Lahoma is now named after him, and I kind of grew up out there and started in agronomy, love agronomy, but I, mid-course after your freshman year, I moved to Ag Econ and wanted to be more on the business side of things and international, and then I kind of got the international bug a little bit. Spent some time in Washington early on as an internship, and China was becoming a member of the World Trade Organization that year in 2001, and I really just said, I want to go to China. I think there's a lot that's going to happen economically, agriculturally, as a customer of our ag business. And so essentially that's what I did. So after OSU, pursued my economics master's in Hong Kong, went to work for Rabobank, that's a food and ag bank based out of Holland, and covered, Northeast Asia, but did a lot in Southeast Asia, India, Europe, and other places, and really got a global perspective from that experience. And then I was tired of working in banking and said I want to go back to a company that makes something. So joined a food company that's based out of Chicago, OSI. Joined them in Asia. Worked on supply chains for poultry, but vegetables and a lot of stuff that goes into quick service restaurants, and really enjoyed that time. And I kind of dive into that because it started me on this thinking process of supply chain, being involved in it, and how important production and the consumer are, and then to be able to know what each one is wanting. And I think that's what's happening kind of in our country now is consumers are much more interested in where their food is coming from.
Yeah.
And, my dad had passed away, left Asia after 10 years there, spent a couple years in Chicago with OSI at the head office, and then decided, come full circle all the way back to the farm, really, like Brian was saying, putting in this concept of trying to create more niche and pure supply chain channels for all the great production that we have around us. And that's not just in grains, but also in beef. When I was at our OSI food company, infrastructure is so critical. And when I come back here to the U.S., and especially in some of the rural areas, there's a lot of development that's still needed.
Yeah.
This recent deal I did with cold storage, and we offer cold storage space to family farms that are trying to build a beef program direct to consumer. And you realize how critical that infrastructure is, but also how unavailable it is in a lot of these areas. So I've been trying to focus, a lot on that, bring more attention, of course, at Enid Brewing, bring more attention to local ingredients that we use in our beers. And, it was never a grand plan. It's just one thing leads to the other, to the next. And so now we're, of course, in beer production and farm-to-table restaurant. It's all our beef there. We're starting to work with a lot of, other producers, trying to source more of the menu items from local areas, and really to help build the rural economy and rebuild the rural economy and diversify it somewhat. So we're excited about that, and we're doing a lot with other breweries, with other distilleries now. We're shipping, as the consumers call them, wheat berries, rye berries, oat berries, this whole fresh milled flour. That's the term. Fresh milled flour is just blowing up. I mean, people are concerned about additives in their foods, and now with this new administration coming, there's more talk about that. So we're really trying to be an avenue for consumers to be able to get ingredients direct from farm.
So where's the pinch point right now? Why is it not easy for that to happen?
We don't always, it seems like, get a fair shake in agriculture because we get accused of a lot of things. But, especially after I was in China, what's different about the U.S. system is that farmers are farmers because they want to be here. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge for food safety, for animal safety, animal husbandry. In a lot of these developing markets, farmers are farmers because they have to be. Right. There's not upward mobility. So producers don't always get the fair shake of that. And it's a challenge policy-wise because, for consumers, people want to keep food cheap, fuel cheap. Yeah. And it's difficult. But I think the real pinch point is, and I started by putting an elevator in because these different, if we're going to do white wheat, if we're going to do mung beans and sesame and some of these other things, you've got to have a place where producers can deliver these products. You can talk all day long to a producer about margins and opportunity, and it grows here, but if he doesn't have a place within relative proximity to his farm to be able to deliver it at harvest when it's coming in bulk and needs to get out as soon as possible, then it's not realistic.
When I came back to the state, because I'm sure, like Brian, the Sidwell name was beaten into me because as a student I got yelled at by Ray for being at Lahoma.
You got yelled? I was never yelled at by Ray.
That was his inside voice, actually.
That was his inside voice.
And that's fine because it made you a better person.
Very passionate.
Yes.
And then I came back and, Sidwell was all over. And every time, working in cropping systems, I work a lot with the new crops, the niche crops. And every time somebody's like, well, we got this new idea, this new crop coming in. Well, where's the delivery point? Well, Brady. Oh, of course, Brady's the guy, and that's I think why you get
Brady's crazy enough to handle it. I guess.
I think that's where you get this whole thing of you get fingers in a lot of things because you're providing this opportunity that it's like we're going to see if this market doesn't work. That's fine,
right?
But a delivery point is not going to be the reason why it's not going to work.
That's right.
Yeah. And along the same lines, and I know you were going to say something, but I want to interrupt all the same.
That's fine. It's your show, I guess.
It's what I do. Now, when you're jumping in first, you started with nothing really coming back, kind of taking over the farm.
Yeah.
Where are the decisions to make next steps? Was it just opportunity, or was there a whole lot more strategy, or kind of a combination of the two?
Yeah, I'm trying to sound really smart here, of course, but I'll tell you, we have so many great farmers. I'm probably not one of them. I'm not the best farmer. I'm more interested and focused, and I think have seen these post-productions, infrastructure, supply chain, and marketing, and obviously I do risk management with Sidwell Strategies, but I'm really trying to take a step into an uncharted area that it's difficult. Yeah, when I look back, I think, all these names of the companies I've just made them up. Like Enterprise Grain, we just made it up and just started it up. But, you've got to have somebody to make a move. Yeah. Well, but more to answer the question, I decided that, production, I feel the need that we really need, like you say, back to the pinch points, are delivery points. But even after that is to be able to clean. So delivery point, be able to clean a product, and then very importantly, being able to bag the product, fumigate, be able to fill out a HACCP, because the challenge is of where production ag goes to food, and the infrastructure between that and the people that are communicating with each other. That's the most difficult piece. It's also like with Enid Brewing when I started it, or Chisholm Trail Milling, I was working with artisans. It's where the business meets the artisan, and that's one of the most difficult bridges to develop in an organization, because we think differently. Yeah, as farmers, we think a thing is in bulk, we deliver in bulk, but that's not how the food business works. That's not how breweries work. It's not how distilleries work. They don't want all their product at one time just because it just got harvested. They want it consistently 12 months out of the year. They've got to be able to qualify for SQF and different food safety standards that the FDA and the food system requires, health departments. And so it's bridging that gap from USDA to FDA and knowing what those customers want, that they can't take it in bulk. A lot of them don't even want it in bulk bags. They want it in, they want a cleaned product, and they want it in 50-pound bags, sometimes smaller. There's a lot of education to happen. So I've just kind of jumped in to, I feel that I've seen that because I've been in the food side. Now I'm coming back to agriculture, and I'm trying to connect the two, and it's just surprising how difficult it is. And it's not, it's infrastructure, it's hard infrastructure, but it's also just mentality of just like I get a lot of farmers that, companies that they want to contract a malt barley variety or mung beans for export or sesame. They want to know how many pounds that I can commit and when they're going to be ready, and then to spec, meaning a certain purity, oil content, all this. And then they want it delivered consistently throughout the year. Well, the problem is, how do I can go back to the farmer. Okay, so you want 1 million pounds of sesame. Okay, I'm going to go all the farmers, try to contract it, but the farmer can't guarantee me. No. I can't have that same commitment to the farmer, because if his act of God with a lot of these specialty crops, there's not crop insurance. But even if there is, you don't have the supply. So that's really where I've been focused on, is trying to put that initial infrastructure to place for a delivery point, but that's just the beginning. Then it goes into actually trying to work with companies on the other end that frankly don't understand agriculture and understand the unpredictability of production ag, weather, disease, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a risk. But to be able to offer a farmer a contract and then turn around, if there's not a futures contract to hedge ourselves, we've got to hedge ourselves with the contract of the next point in the supply chain. Well, they want to know how many pounds of cleaned product they can have. And anyway, so it's just bridging that gap from ag to food, but somebody's got to do it. And a lot of this part of the sector has been extremely consolidated over the years. Like when you think about all the companies, and that's not always best for the farmer. So we're trying to create these alternate avenues. And what I also find is young people coming back to the farm, they want to do things differently. Right. They want to have a brand. They may want to have regenerative ag. They might. So we're channels for all those. We're now doing toll milling, so people can bring us their grain and we'll mill it into flour if they want to have their own flour product. We help store frozen beef. That's another bottleneck that they have to be able to get to market.
A lot of the small producers that I know that are trying to sell halves and wholes. That's the deal. Is like they have to have an order, and those orders may not come in. It'd be a whole lot easier just to process 7 to 10 head and be able to store it and then sell out that way than, okay, I finally got an order for a half or a full, but how many times on Facebook do you see, all right, we had somebody back out of a half. Right. We can't store it, so we got to get it out, and usually taking a little bit of a cut just because they don't have facility to store.
Consumers are just in time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't want to book things, like if we're going to buy a doodle, I'm sure Brian has one. You got to book it way in advance, and people are okay with that.
Yeah.
But not for food, right?
Mm-mm.
So it's hard. And you think about it. If you want to say, hey, tonight I want to have some local steaks, and if you don't have it in your freezer, where do you buy it?
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do as well, instead of just pre-booking, hey, we're going to have this calf ready in 3-4 months. Also, right now in this economy, consumers don't necessarily want to write a $3,000 check for all this beef. So, we're trying to provide an avenue where we also have it, we have cuts available all the time. It's local beef. And if people want to come in and buy some hamburger, and we're selling it at the brewery also.
Yeah.
Or buy some steaks, they can do that and not have to commit.
Right.
Not have to wait.
You kind of talked about one of the big steps forward is the consumers have gotten more and more interested in where things are coming from. And I think you even see that of like buying a pair of jeans, you can scan a QR code and see the farmer and the farm that you bought the cotton that went into that pair of jeans. And I remember when we first started this out, it was, okay, we're probably going to get a little bit, but once they get a little bit of information, they're probably not going to be interested in more.
Right.
And then it keeps going, they want a little bit more. Do you think we're even close to that pinnacle of where the general public is going to be interested in agriculture and where their products are coming from? Or are we just in the start, or we just really ramping it up?
Yeah. And I think it ebbs and flows. COVID actually did a great thing for us, frankly, in agriculture. Well, I should probably, there's a lot of disclaimers around that. I mean, obviously it wasn't a good, but what I mean is that, people weren't able, all of a sudden they had taken food supply for granted.
Yeah.
And it localized and regionalized a lot more of our food chain. I kind of feel we're at the beginning of this.
Okay.
Or I'm hoping, I guess. But, and it's all about scale. It's, ADM can't just flip the switch and start doing this. And that's a different part of the market. But what we can do here at ground level in our rural communities with entrepreneurs and younger people coming back in ag, there's excitement around this. If they've moved off to bigger cities and come back to the farm, they see it. People are much more interested, I feel like, or getting there. Not that they're going to move to the farm.
Right.
They're interested in having an experience and knowing about it and cleaner ingredients. I think we're on a trend here. And, we have a new administration coming in. RFK's, obviously, Junior's been talking a lot about this.
Yeah.
And, it's gonna be an opportunity. There could be some challenges with it, too, of course. But people are, I think, starting to get a little bit more, conscious of that food is health.
Yeah.
And what we eat, it matters, and it's not just about treating with pharmaceuticals when we're have a tickle in our throat like I do, but about eating healthier is a lifestyle, and it can make you healthier, and food is health. I mean, there's a lot of venture companies that are getting more invested in these type of things. So specialty crops, putting genetics into in purpose, and they're looking for specialty supply chains to be able to source those. And I think that's just beginning. And I think kind of what we're, I want to be able, like if somebody is coming to Oklahoma, just like you're talking about, they have a soybean that has proteins in it that produce more casein. They can't have it mixed and blended with other stuff. They have to have a specialty supply chain, clean fields, chain of custody. And that's really where we're evolving. We've been doing that, but we're getting much more intentional about it. And that could be the same with wheats and other things. I mean, right now we're doing durum. We're doing red wheats. We're keeping it single variety. So whatever Dr. Carver's putting in that grain, and he talks about it, he tells the farmer, and then also the milling and baking quality, we can deliver that to the baker.
I think it's one of the kind of an interesting thing about this is that if we look at a lot of the thoughts about this, 10 years ago, it's like, oh, that's only Austin. That's only New York City. That's only, big metropolitan areas. They're the only ones. The folks out in the plains and the flyover states don't really give, a whole lot of value to that stuff. But I would say if you look at the communities, even in Enid and other areas, that there's a lot more value. Maybe that's because of social media. Maybe it's because of stuff that's going on and just the availability of information. But I feel like there's been a big shift in community thought, even in rural community thought about, where is the food coming from?
A long time ago, this local, eat Oklahoma, all that. Yeah. Those were just marketing, sometimes just marketing ploys on saying that. And then they came to the realization that, an eat local sometimes isn't as local as they thought it was. And now the public's kind of holding everybody's feet to the fire and saying, no. When I say eat local, if I'm going to pay for this, I really want it to be local. And the only way to do that is to have these markets available and these sectors available to be able to supply that issue.
I was at a meeting up at Manhattan, and you weren't able to be there. It had everybody. It had growers, had millers, had the entire spectrum talking about that. And the conversation finally went from it really can't be grow or eat local, like don't eat. It's not eating Enid wheat necessarily. Right. As far as supply chain, but it could much easily be eat Oklahoma wheat, so that we can bring in, because maybe we have a drought needed. Not that ever happens, but right. So, like you're saying, the supply chain. So, the local and even advertising more. Eat Oklahoma. Eat.
Right.
So that means more regional, so that there's an opportunity. But the discussion from the baker millers, from those that are handling the grain to those using it and growing it, is really interesting conversation about what can we actually label our wheat as, and what's you can't say eat local and it's within a 30-mile radius. Right. Well, you could, but for your
group, if
you
have a drought or
and so that's an interesting conversation.
What we don't want to say is eat local and it be like a 600-mile radius.
Yeah, right.
That's fine, but we need to rebrand it to something else.
It's getting the scale right. It's not going to be. You're not in small town Europe where you're getting everything. Your bread's back there. Everything. It's what is that scale that fits in our country, where we need to be.
Yeah.
So in business school, they really talk about disruptors, and you're supplying a need for a local market and local customers. But how do you take what you're doing now and really take it to that disruptor level?
Right. Are you calling me a disruptor? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think I would argue. Yeah, you're on your path.
I'll tell you, I get calls all the time. I just had one this week from a farm kid in Kansas, but he lives in Denver. Same thing.
Yeah,
he's heard about what we put into place, and I get calls all over about this. Maybe they're more beef starting out, or maybe they're grain and they want to diversify. Or I think what we're doing here is actually like a franchisable thing.
Yeah,
I think it's there's an ability to copy and paste it. Now, I've tried to do this myself. I wouldn't suggest that. I would get a few partners involved,
right.
Try to, share some risk. But yeah, I think that like you guys are saying, the localness of it, and there's an opportunity for, and I think it's important because we always talk about it. The average age of farmers. You look at the direction it's moving. Mm-hmm. I saw a chart the other day about the average age of taxpayers, and it's going in the opposite direction. It's going lower.
Yeah.
And you know what that means? I mean, unless we get the youth of the country more engaged in supply chain and food and local and have an appreciation for it, it's going to be hard to continue getting congressmen elected that want to fund agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
when that age divide is a big challenge. But what we're doing, what I'm doing, especially around the brewery and the flour and farm to table and grains for distilleries and. There's excitement around that.
Yeah.
We also do things in drones and technology, and a lot of young people are interested in that and talented with that. And AI is coming, and we've got to get more young people engaged in the business. But the business is going to be different because of it, and better. But I think what we're doing, it can be replicated across the country. Setting up these small ecosystems is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Putting some of this post-farm infrastructure in place, having delivery points, and then building, because that's what I've done. You put a delivery point in place, and then you start building processing around it to take those ingredients and specialty crops that you're bringing together in one place, and you start to create some volume, and then making it into a value-added product.
So you're talking about, I think this is kind of interesting. You're talking about that, franchisable concept or the cookie cutter where we could take this. With your experience, what you've done, is there a community size that's like this floor that, I really need to be in a community of X size, because it's not like you should be doing this in Helena. Like, you don't drop in there and do all this, or at least access to consumer. From what you're going, is Enid like on the low end because you've got access, but really the larger communities are still an hour away.
No, it's a good question, and I'm here in Enid. I'm actually from Goldtree area, right? And I thought about that, but I'm much more able to answer this question now. And I think 50,000 is minimum. Now, here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
all these satellite communities around, they're all plugging in to this regional base. But you've got to have that regional base, because we opened the first craft beer brewery in Enid, and there's still a lot of consumers that have never had and are fearful to try craft beer, thinking it's, we have some lighter beers now. We're kind of knowing our audience a bit more, but some of these places are not, maybe ready for some of these newer things.
You mean something heavier than a Miller Lite, Coors Light, or Bud Light, or Michelob Ultra now? I mean,
I think the answer, the question we answer the most at the brewery is, okay, what's closest to a Miller Lite or Bud Light?
I bet so.
So, and it would be our Cowboy Blonde. Let me answer that. It's our Cowboy Blonde. You got to try our Cowboy Blonde. So we try to make approachable things, but I really would say, 50,000, because the thing is, people have to begin to understand concepts that are new, and this one now is pretty well established, but still, and all these satellite communities plug into it, whether with ingredients or they're farmers contracting with you to supply the grain, or there's these regional hubs, and I feel like there's these regional hubs all over the country where you have small communities around, and that's where there's critical mass.
Well, let me ask you a question. So let's say you turn back time, and instead of settling in Enid, you go down to Oklahoma City because you're like, I need to be in a big market. I think here you also get there's a close enough connection to agriculture. Even folks that have always lived in Enid proper, that they have a close enough connection to agriculture that they appreciate that. Maybe they don't completely understand it. Maybe they don't, but they appreciate it. Do you think you could have gotten the same thing in downtown Oklahoma City? Because the market's there, but the appreciation to eat local and to buy Oklahoma wheat or buy Oklahoma beef is maybe not as strong as it would be in a medium-sized community.
Sure, 100%. And that has other challenges. Thankfully, I didn't. It's really a tough time right now for the craft beer industry. There's a lot of breweries that started in the state, that started craft beer in the state, that are closed or closing in Oklahoma City, Tulsa.
Right.
The other challenge there, of course, is real estate.
Yeah.
And it may not be anything about the craft side and all that. It's about real estate, and real estate prices have spiked, and it's made a challenge for these breweries, but no doubt. And the other thing, people love getting in their cars and taking a little road trip.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to build agritourism around this. So there's a lot of elements, I feel like, of this kind of franchise model you have to have in place. You can't just have the idea or the passion, right? It starts there, and then it's like, oh wait, this is real. This is real. These are real costs.
It's real risk.
Insurance. Employment. Real risk. That's right. But then there's the agritourism element, and like you say, people don't necessarily want to be in the metro, and they want to get out, and so we have some Airbnbs around it. We're trying to create more of a tourism aspect and an experience. People like to experience. So this is an experiential supply chain, so to speak.
What have you learned throughout the process? You said, hey, I'm going to start this. I think this will be successful in Enid. What has been your biggest takeaway from that? And then secondly, what would you have changed in the process?
Would I have ever done this again? Right. Would I do it again?
Yeah.
No. But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship generally, which is what this is. It's just it's cold-blooded entrepreneurship, and it's unforgiving, I can tell you.
It is.
And the market's changed a lot in the last couple of years with interest rates, doubling.
Yeah.
And inflation and all the things, but it teaches you a lot about yourself and about what works, and you got to kind of recommit to some things. Well, entrepreneurship, you're always kind of recommitting, like, okay, right, is this really what I want to do, and keep it going. But what was the question?
What have you learned, and what would you do differently, or even not do at all in the process?
Right. I'd probably move a little slower.
Yeah.
I tend to move fast, but I like that. Sometimes you just gotta blow the doors off and get to the next point. But
there you go.
Slow moving has never been a Sidwell thing. So I don't think you could do that physically.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm not going to start moving slower probably, but maybe just more intentionally. People are so important.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, with a new idea in entrepreneurship, it's actually hard to recruit people. Which you would think it's like, somebody has a job and they're in a job, and a lot of people have an entrepreneurial spirit, but to leave a stable job and go branch off. So, it takes time with that. it's been part of the journey. Is one thing leads to the next, and you couldn't have taken the second step until you took the first.
That's true.
But to be honest, I mean, there's things probably I would have done differently, and more step by step possibly with stuff. But in the end, I look back, and that's I wouldn't be where I am now unless I did the other steps. And we're going to be doing, we're always pivoting in different ways and kind of adapting to the market, and we're going to start doing that a little bit more. And you begin to learn about your scale and the market and what fits. But I'll tell you, there's I'm here in Enid. There's a lot of people in this area, of course, that are our customer base. But I'm starting to focus more on outside of this area.
Yeah.
Taking the ingredients here and the experiences and attracting people from whether we're shipping product to them. I mean, with our flour, we're shipping to 13 states.
Wow.
We're in one of the restaurants at the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas.
Wow.
That's cool.
We're talking to some resorts in the Bahamas, and we're in restaurants and bakeries here in Oklahoma, and of course throughout the country. That sector is blowing up. I mean,
wow.
People are getting back to bread making, sourdough starters, in home. COVID also, I think, helped people get back into some of these.
Yeah.
We're going to start focusing on that channel a little bit more. I mean, we're both focused on small scale consumers and also large scale commodities, and we essentially take products that are commodities, so to speak. I mean, they're specialty crops, but they're high volume, and we have to slow them down in the supply chain, just like I had talked about.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of capital to do because we're trying to get smarter with how we communicate with those customers, tell our story is so important, and watch your overhead. Labor and facilities are expensive. And
obviously you're bringing all this grain into the elevator. How much of that grain is held on-farm storage before it's coming to you? And because that's always we've talked about specialty markets in Oklahoma for a long time. Yep. It's great. We don't have the on-farm infrastructure like maybe we have in Iowa or Louisiana or some of these other places where they have to haul to the port constantly. That's constantly been part of in Oklahoma. We're going to go across the scales. We're going to dump it. That's it. How big a challenge has that been, and what does that look like as part of your model as far as bringing grain in, especially these specialty, single variety products or stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's the on-farm storage is very limited here, and a lot of farmers just don't have interest also to mess with it.
It's more management, more money, all these things.
Because of that, that's, again, what goes back to the delivery point being more important.
Yeah.
We handle most of it. A lot of it does not come from off. I mean, we buy wheat throughout the year that's more commodity stuff that we sell to other large-scale mills. And we're, our elevator, I'm going to say this, at Enterprise Grain, we're focused on quality.
Yeah, for sure.
We really started protein premium to farmers in this area back in 2017. Bought a few protein machines, and now farmers say, hey, what's the protein premium?
Yeah.
Now, in the recent years, we've had a lot of protein, so there hasn't been as much, and it gets factored into the basis, and I understand all that, but hey, I like to think that I've helped improve the quality, and because that's really what I'm going to do. I'm not. If you're smaller scale, you're going to try to be more niche focused.
Yeah, you can't play the commodity game. You've got to find your market.
Yep.
But the biggest deal is segregation. So what am I doing? I'm investing in more bins, more individual segregated bins.
Small bins, several of them. Yeah.
Yep. Because, we're handling foundation, registered seeds, of course, but also single variety. And we tote a lot of stuff. Yeah. We put a lot of stuff in bags. But we have a location up in Medford that's been just a feed store, 81 Feed and Seed. We've just invested in a full semi-scale, and we've put 3 bins up there right now, but we're going to continue to add to that. So
yeah, another delivery point effectively, and that all comes.
But, mung beans, oats.
Yeah.
Thinking about white Milo even, that's a gluten-free. But
maybe black Milo, stuff like that.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean,
corn, non-GM corn.
Yeah. I mean, so how far, as far as bringing in grain, what's your radius? You talk about protein premiums. Where does that line kind of, is it Alva? Is it Ponca City? Generally, I mean, if you're offering a premium, that's always, freight. Sure. It's a big deal in the producer mind, especially if they're paying freight for a custom harvester or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And, on the wheat side, like I say, now this has become more common that there's a premium offered, which is good. I consider that good. And we're finding other ways to differentiate now and focus on quality. So on the wheat side, I mean, we try to help out with the freight too with trucks, but 30 miles probably. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I mean, you're in the heart of wheat country here, so.
But it travels further, of course, with our specialty crops because there's not that many delivery points for mung beans or sesame or oats.
So how much do you work on the origination side? Quite a bit, or do you have quite a bit of staff that really works that?
Oh, from time to time, and then
I mean
that's one of the many hats.
Is it Monday or Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean that's always been a fascinating part of that business is originating, especially on something like a specialty crop or a premium crop. I mean, there's a lot of legwork that goes in behind the scenes that people do not realize. Just to get that grain to you in the front end.
Well, and just all the questions, right? How many pounds do I plant?
Yeah.
When do I plant?
What's
How deep do I
the
plant?
contract
What's the agronomy?
spec? All the stuff.
Yep. And so a lot of that that's part of it is just forging ahead and feeling your way through it, and it's risk.
Yes, it is.
It's difficult, and you learn from year to year, and a lot of this. I just have to make those contracts and put them together, create them,
for sure,
based on what my experience is as I have more contacts in the for my customers in the food business, and trying to translate that back into a realistic contract to a farmer.
So I guess another question is, how much do you all go through and have private insurance as far as trying to support and back, hedge those contracts? How do you handle that?
That's a good question. That there's more to come in that, and really when I think about what I'm doing in risk management and trading, maybe this is really a niche of mine that I can develop more of kind of a private tool that I can also share with other companies over time that are trying to do the same thing and help them hedge. So, it's a variety of things, but it's not straightforward. There's proxies. But when these things are not traded, and it's not just the delivery point, but now it's the risk management piece. We've just taken on some risk. I mean, we've had CHS as a delivery point for us, but we took the price risk and just paid them handling. So we're also working with other partners. I think my whole contribution back here, I'm trying to create a company that is sustainable and all that, but I'm also, a lot of this is kind of economic development in a lot of ways. And
for sure,
I work with a lot of other co-ops and private companies and excited to do that. And I'm always open-minded to partner. And that's one thing I realize is, again, it's hard to do things that get to meaningful scale by yourself. And
Well, Brady, thank you so much for coming on. We know you got to get back to your booth. We appreciate you taking time out of your day and fighting through
I know, sorry.
A frog in your throat. But thank you so much. We enjoyed it.
Always.
And catch up with you down the road.
Appreciate you guys doing this and getting people on and sharing topics. And hopefully we'll get more people outside of agriculture subscribing and knowing that we have their best interest in mind.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, leave us a message on our website, reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag. We'd like to thank Brady Sidwell of Sidwell Strategies for joining us on this episode of the podcast. And again, if you get a chance, visit our website, reddirtagronomy.com, to find out more information about our guests and any of the resources we discussed today on the podcast. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Brian Ernell, and Dr. Radon Cherry, I am not a doctor, but I play one on the podcast from time to time, Dave Deacon, and we all want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media, LLC 2025. And yes, all rights are reserved.